Jim, you cannot overstate what a explosive and just kind of earth-shattering development this is for so many victims. My phone has been ringing off the hook all day today. Not just victims, but also from members of law enforcement who either worked on this case or have, followed this case closely, because it is just, it is so unbelievable to them, the timing. It just looks and suggests that there may be some kind of deal made in the last couple of days. And the statement that the Giuffre family said today was so clear. It was shocking to me, actually, how strong it was. They said this smacks of a cover-up. And I think the major thing that all of these victims, members of law enforcement, even just people of the general public who have such an interest in this case, it is the reason that this is so incredible is that it speaks to the very thing that makes the Epstein case such an issue of national importance. And that's the fact that the evidence suggests, laid out that we have learned through lots of testimony, through interviews and other things, that there were different standards of justice for people who had power and means. And that's why this story even has taken on this conspiracy theory level online across the internet, because it has this stickiness, and that point was just underscored in the events today. So I would say the victims and others involved in this case, they are distraught, and they feel that something is very amiss here.
So Shan Wu, you have the timing of this move to a lower security prison. You also have, at a minimum, the unconventional talks between the president's deputy attorney general and a woman who's been convicted and is now serving 20 years for horrible, horrible crimes. And you have attached to that the president's Justice Department's decision not to release files that he long said he would release. So when you add those things together, does that legally seem inappropriate to you?
It does seem inappropriate in this sense in particular, Jim, which is it's utterly in disarray. It's unprofessional. It's not how you would conduct an investigation. There are many situations where someone who is giving valuable information as a cooperator, they may get little perks. They get more phone calls, maybe more access to the computer. There's no indication here that they're getting anything valuable, and one wonders what could possibly be valuable at this point. I mean, her testimony would be so biased, so discredited. Yeah. Not only that, you factor in the idea that the Deputy Attorney General is conducting the interview. It's really unheard of. Why not have the agents who worked on the case, the prosecutors who really know the case, see if there's something else that can be valuable? This simply sounds like they're playing some FaceTime to her. We'll have the Deputy AG come in who never does interviews like this. And then when you add in the timing, we're going to give you a nicer, cushier kind of place to be in jail. It seems like they want to entice her into doing something that's helpful to them, but really there can't be anything of substance that's of value coming from her at this point.
Sarah, of course, many of the president's supporters, and at times the president himself, promised that they were going to be transparent where previous administrations were not, that they were finally going to release all the files that showed how far and wide Epstein's and Maxwell's crimes went. Now you have the president reversing that, it seems. And I wonder, do family members, victims, friends, relatives, etc., look at this as a betrayal?
Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone was willing to, on a bipartisan basis, of course, remember, there are over 1,000 Epstein victims, so this is a really wide group, and that's just that we know of, that the Justice Department has acknowledged. It is likely many times that. But I think it's important that this is, these victims viewed this not as a political football, which this has kind of become in recent weeks. For them, this is about accountability and justice. And that's important for two reasons. One, Epstein, we know through our reporting and all of the evidence that has been presented in court as well as civil litigation, that this was an extensive sex trafficking operation that involved a lot of people, including some mandatory reporters, doctors, other people that would have been required to speak out about what was happening. And so those people have not yet been held accountable in any meaningful way. And secondly, all of the victims, and especially Virginia, who I was in touch with right up until she died, it was so important to her that what came out of this horrific experience was changes in legislation, changes in rules about how law enforcement talks to victims, that they have to be informed before certain things happen. None of the victims today have been informed about the facts that Maxwell was moved. And that, is another just kind of slap in the face. It's also, I think, really important. There's an element of re-traumatization here. Because one of the things that Maxwell in particular did so effectively is she would taunt these victims, and she would say, or people that would be in a position to know things, and she would say, you can't do anything because we own the police, we own the FBI, we own the district attorney's office. And so that had a really chilling effect on people that may have been inclined to come forward. And this situation today, I think everyone in America looking at this can't help but think that perhaps, there is a new system of justice here, and that perhaps they are not safe in coming forward, going forward. And that's going to be a major problem for all kinds of investigations.
That would be such yet one more sad impact of all this. Sarah Fitzpatrick, Shan Wu, thanks so much to both of you.
New questions surround the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Officials say Epstein associate and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from a low-level security prison in Tennessee to a minimum security prison camp in Texas. That move, which typically requires a waiver, happened just days after Maxwell and her attorney met face-to-face with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche for 9 hours over 2 days. Meetings from which we still have no notes and a less than completely clear picture of who else was even in the room. The families of Epstein and Maxwell's victims slammed the decision, saying in a statement, quote, President Trump has sent a clear message today. Pedophiles deserve preferential treatment and their victims do not matter. For more, I want to bring in Dave Weigel, political reporter for Semaphore, and Carol Lenig, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter with The Washington Post. Thank you both for being here tonight. Carol, I'll start with you and your reaction to this new chapter in the Epstein controversy. Our colleagues Lisa Rubin and Ken Delanian reported earlier today that this was technically not allowed and it would have required a waiver to make this move happen. So how shocking to you is this move, and does it, for you as a reporter, does it make you question if a deal of some sort has been made here?
Well, I think the only conclusion we can come to is that Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a less restrictive facility, obviously minimum security prison camp, basically a nicer kind of country club kind of location, because she agreed to sit for 2 days full of interviews. I don't think there's it looks causative. However, I will say the even stranger thing that's going on here is she's been convicted, tried, and sentenced to 20 years in prison. And the flummoxing event is, what exactly is the law enforcement purpose of re-interviewing her over certain facts about Jeffrey Epstein after those facts have been adjudicated, tried, established? What is the purpose for any law enforcement purpose? What is it other than trying to solve a presidential political crisis? Because that's what's really, I think, in the craw of so many prosecutors and FBI agents. What is really going on here?
I want to make one correction to what I said a moment ago. I think I said Tennessee. She is being transferred from Florida to Texas. David, I guess with all of this, is Trump betraying his own brand to a certain extent here? I guess trying to get into the minds of his base. For months, for years, a drumbeat asking for the uncovering of a deep state, accountability, names to be released, people to go down. And it seems like the only material development we've had over the last few weeks is a convicted sex offender moving to more plush digs. How is this going to go over with the people who wanted a reckoning?
Well, let's break down who that base is, because the Trump electorate changed in each of his 3 races, and he definitely, in 2024, added the most people who you could call anti-politics, anti-establishment, little trust in Washington, and believed that Trump was going to kick rocks over and find not just whatever information the government had, but that information was going to put some of the enemies of the anti-politics person in jail. It was going to find perfidy by all sorts of people. As soon as the administration started slow-walking the files that were not, as it turned out, on Pam Boendi's desk, those sorts of people, and you see this in the podcasters who jumped on the Trump bandwagon after not supporting him before. Those people have been off of it. The people who are staying in the coalition are satisfied with a lot of the dust being thrown up by the administration on other stories. And you saw that this week, the intensity with which the administration has been looking for any documents related to the 2016 Russia investigation, the intensity with the House Republicans who have not subpoenaed Maxwell, who are looking at Joe Biden's final months in office and whether an auto pen was used. That has, in the conservative media space, that has taken over the space of the Epstein story. The Epstein story was basically nowhere on Fox this week. The Sydney Sweeney ad story took all of the airtime that would be devoted to something like that. So for much of the base, there has been an effort that they've agreed with to move on to other topics. It's those people who, and every Democrat, but also those people who took a chance on Trump because they thought he was going to reveal everything. Those are the ones who are disappointed.
The more we get, the more we see about Trump's special relationships, quote unquote, with young girls. And I have to say, it's pretty concerning, to say the least. We covered this yesterday, but I didn't really delve into it enough. One of the reporters, one of the commentators talking about this story that we've all been talking about, Trump and Maxwell and Epstein, and why Trump and Epstein stopped being friends. There was that moment where Trump referenced, oh, he stole an employee from me. And first of all, it's creepy how he talks about a person as a piece of property, right? To be stolen. But put that aside if you can and say she was like a literal girl. Like, right? Like, she was, and working at one of his spas, apparently, right? And he knew her. And look, I've heard stories about how Trump, on a personal level, isn't the worst boss with a lot of, like, his employees. I've heard stories about how he's generally cordial. Like, you know, like, I've heard stories like that he's not, like, a monster day to day to, like, the help at his establishments. But how would he know who she is? Trump has hundreds, thousands, this is before he was president even, has hundreds of or thousands of employees at Trump Tower, at all of his casinos that he's had, at all of his resorts, his golf clubs, all of the businesses that he owns, either and operates directly or indirectly. He's got tons of employees. He would not know them all. He would know his managers. He would know maybe people who have worked there for a very long time, say a caddy who worked at his golf club for 20 years. He might know them. She was just starting there. And the implication is that Trump may have some intimate knowledge of this woman, allegedly, and that's how he knew who she was. Why else would you know a 17, 18, whatever, aged girl who works at your spa? And that's very troubling. And just as this story broke, coincidentally, Maxwell gets moved to a lower security prison. It's almost as if she was willing to drop bombs that she's already been dropping. This news breaks just randomly. And then Maxwell gets a lower prison assignment. Sounds like someone's putting the screws to Donald, allegedly.